everybody. This is Justin Case of American Newscape, joining our friend and honey bee wrangler Cricket Aldridge, bringing you bee havens. Hello, Cricket. Welcome back to American Newscape.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good. You were teasing us with some visuals that we had no idea what you were showing us before we started this. So that was just to whet our appetites.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And everybody, we did an interview with Cricket quite a while ago that was very, very popular. Cricket is our go-to person when we want to understand something about honeybees or bees or swarms or Africanized bees, all that stuff. She's devoted her life, well, not her life, but her primary passion and her livelihood is helping these bees survive. So, Cricket, with that being said, what's happening in your world?
Well, so much is happening. One, I moved to a new location, so I'm actually looking out the window right now. A beautiful garden and a mountain, and we have 40 beehives out here, so that's exciting. And this is the busy time of year for bees and beekeepers, so that right there is filling up my time.
Is this officially swarm season?
Absolutely. Swarm season. So that, is when the flowers are starting to bloom in the spring. And we call that swarm season. We call that the nectar flow. And this year in Arizona, it is bonkers with all the rain we've had.
Well, I remember it was a few years ago, and I think I reached out to you as well. But I was walking down my center walk, and I looked at the garage wall, and there was a swarm of bees. This
Yep.
big old giant ball of bees, and it was hanging out there. I was able to. I looked for a bee service removal, not to. And there really
Hmm.
wasn't anybody to do it, but there was a big beekeeper that I know from the north of the valley, and he knew that I was allergic to bees, so he said, "I'll tell you what, I'll come down there and get them for you." And and then he wanted, when I sent him pictures, he said they're not going to stay. Now everybody else
Hmm.
told me they were going to leave, but he could look at the formation on the wall, knowing that they were not going to stay. And in 48 hours, they all took off. They were gone.
Yep.
They just came to rest. So there's so much we don't know about bees that we need to depend on people like you so we don't make erroneous mistakes, such as calling an exterminator or talking to friends that want to foam the bees or friends that are going to vacuum the bees into canisters. Um,
Hmm.
you're to the bees and to those of us that have the utmost respect for bees and what they do. You're in essence a hero. You're a bee hero.
Well, that's nice. I think all the people that choose beekeepers like me are the heroes.
Well, it may be a combination, but I can't. I have to imagine that of all the people you've gone out to help and remove swarms, that you've left them with a tremendous amount of knowledge going forward.
Yeah, that's my passion actually. I love bees so much that if there's anyone around, I will be telling them how great bees are. So definitely when I go do removals, I like to tell the people what they're looking at, why the bees are there, and um, my goal really is to just help them realize how valuable they are and why they made such a great decision to choose to not kill them.
Well, it's fascinating. If people check out your social media and your websites, there's actually videos of you removing bees and the process you're going through, and some of the just the unbelievable places you find these bees. And I know in Phoenix metro area, water meters are a place they just love to be.
Yeah, they do. Who wouldn't in 120-degree summers? Yeah,
Yeah,
I get a
and
lot of bees out of valve boxes. It's my actual favorite place to do bee removals because it's a nice little rectangle. The bees put their comb in all the right ways, and it's basically like just taking that and putting it in a box. That's a beehive.
well, absolutely for them. And what Oh boy, boy, just so much to ask you that I'm stuttering here. What what is one of the hardest removals you've had to do, Cricket?
Oh my goodness, definitely. The hardest removal we ever did was in a house that had been it had been quarantined because there was some kind of a bombing there. And there was a holdup actually, and there was the SWAT team that had come. There's bullet holes in the walls and bullet holes in the doors, and that had nothing to do with the bees, but it was very interesting. But that hive had been in this house, an old house, on the second floor for years, and it turned out to be two hives actually about 10 feet apart. And when we cut open the ceiling, the bees were extremely aggressive. And the whole attic space was just filled with comb and honey. And we started that job probably 5 o'clock at night and ended at 3 o'clock in the morning and had to come back the next day for several more hours.
How many bees
It
would
was
you?
Oh, well, a strong colony, like in a beekeeper's colony, would be about 60,000 bees, and that was two colonies. So I'm guessing it had to be, 120,000 bees there.
Many.
And not nice bees. They were Africanized for sure. So we're getting, the hard part about ceiling removals is there's insulation. So imagine you're up like this in dark because we work in the dark with flashlights to keep the bees in one spot. And then we're cutting the ceiling open. There's honey dripping on you. There's insulation falling on you, sticking to the honey, going through your mask, but you can't get to your face because you have a mask on and gloves, and bees are sticking to you. And it's hot because it's the middle of summer and there's no air conditioning. That's what makes it really hard.
And
Yeah.
you survived. Now,
And yes, we survived.
so I assume you took those two colonies out and you did something that
Yeah.
I learned
So
from you.
when we take colonies out, what we're doing is we use a bee vacuum, which is usually ours is a bucket that has a filter that we make with a PVC pipe. So a what is that? Shop vac hose sticks into one hole, and then another hose sticks into the other hole that goes into the bucket, so that we're actually sucking bees into a bucket. So the first thing we do is suck all the bees into the bucket just to really get a lot of them out. And then we cut the comb like these pieces I have here I was showing you earlier. These are from a removal. That's all that is pollen you see right there. So the comb that we get from this is a tiny piece, but they'll be enormous, and we have to cut them to fit the size of a frame. And what we're looking for is brood. So we're looking for eggs, larvae, and pupa. And we put that comb in wired frames that go into the hive box. And we put all the honeycomb in buckets and bags so we can feed it back to the bees. So all of those bees, we look for the queen, put her in the hive, and then when we're all done, we take the bucket or buckets, in that case, of bees and hive boxes with the comb, and we take it out to our apiary. Those were means that we take them out by Lake Pleasant, where we have an apiary, and of course, 3 o'clock in the morning. You dump the bees into the box with all of their brood, so they can start taking care of it. And you leave all that honey out there so they can eat it and put it right back in. If we stuck the honey in, it would just drip all over and kill the bees, so we can't do that. So then they just basically reattach everything and continue on as if nothing happened.
And they're bees. They like to work. They really like
Yeah.
to
Oh
work.
my gosh, so fast they'll work. And then in this case, we would probably break that into a few other hives because it's so large, and the larger the hive, the meaner the hive. Um, not to say mean, it's really defensive because they have a lot to defend and a lot of workers to defend it. So we'll break it into smaller hives and we'll order queens that are not Africanized and replace that. So then we've got, several hives from that one that are going to be European nice colonies.
Well, I think you taught me a long time ago that these swarms are, in essence, Africanized bees. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I just did a talk about this with some people. Africanized bees are the predominant bee in Arizona right now of honeybees, because the African bees swarm about 10 times more often than European bees do, which means they're reproducing their colony 10 times a year as
Oh,
opposed
wow.
to maybe once a year that European colonies do. So that's one reason that we have so many Africanized bees here. Another reason is that Africanized drones, which are the male bees, they are faster and they have a longer mating period than European bees, so they're more likely to catch a queen and mate with her than European bees are. So if your colony loses a queen and she has to go out and mate, then she's going to be mated with African bees. Your colony is going to become Africanized. And the other way that your colony becomes Africanized with African bees is that they produce usurpation swarms, which are so different than a regular reproductive swarm. I don't know if I told you this before, last time, but it's so fascinating to me that these usurpation swarms are basically a queen from an African hive. They'll produce several queens in a hive at once. And in European colonies, normally what happens is one queen will hatch and kill all the other ones. So then you're left with one queen. With African colonies, what they can do is produce several queen cells. And when the first queen hatches, she will want to go and kill the others, but they'll put a little retinue of guard bees around those queen cells that those guards will allow the queens to hatch and protect them from any other queens. So they may have several queens hatch in this hive, protected by these little guard bees, and then that queen will mate, and then she will go out with even just a few hundred or less bees to go to a hive that may be weaker, and then they'll land on that hive and sit there for a while, and you'll think that it's just your bees sitting on the outside of the hive because it's really just a handful and not doing anything about it. But what's happening actually is that the queen is being protected by those bees, those worker bees, and a few of those worker bees are making their way inside the hive, going past their guard bees, and what they're doing is finding the queen from that colony, and they're going to kill her. And then once that queen's dead, the bees that are protecting the queen on the outside will escort her into that hive and protect her until that colony accepts her as their queen. So you can have an Africanized colony that way, and then of course it's going to keep reproducing. So it's just one of those fascinating things about African bees that it's awesome, it's amazing survival, but it's not good for beekeepers and communities.
People. It's not good for the people. Well,
Yeah.
it sounds like the Africanized bees, their survival is like cockroaches.
I don't really know about cockroaches. I know that they survive, so maybe at least Africanized bees still are pollinating for us. They're still they still make honey. They're just more defensive.
Well, they have an attitude. And maybe they fit in society better. So it seems like society's developing an attitude.
Yeah,
Let's blame the
maybe a little bit
bees.
like that.
Let's blame the bees. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so getting back to the requeening, give us a few more details about your process of requeening. So
Oh, good.
you've got
Yeah,
your
sorry. I get off topic sometimes. I'll hear something and my mind's going, I want to talk about that. Requeening then. So, okay, bees have one queen in their hive. That queen is the mother of all of the bees in that colony. So a queen can lay eggs, 15 to 1800 eggs a day for her whole life. Worker bees only live 6 weeks. Queen bees can live 2 to 5 years.
Wow.
So that's a lot of eggs, but she has to keep that colony going because of those the 6 weeks that those bees live. She's got to constantly be replacing them. So when a queen hatches, we call her a virgin queen. She'll be in the hive for 5 days or so, and then she goes out for a mating flight, and she'll fly through the air. And I'll get to the requeening part after this, but she'll fly through the air and release her pheromone, and that's how drone bees from other colonies, which are male bees, will find and mate with her, and she'll mate with 8 to 12 or so drones and come back, and then she doesn't leave that hive again unless they swarm. So she doesn't need to mate ever again, which is important.
Sorry, Cricket. So I've got 12 drones that are flying around that smell the queen and mate with her. Now, do they follow her, or are they just out there rogue drones looking to impregnate any queen happening by?
Well, kind of like that. And the drone's only job is to mate. So they don't have stingers. They don't forage for food. Every day they go out during a certain time period, and they just fly around. They call it a drone congregation area. I don't know where that is. Nobody does. It's up in the air. The queens queens instinctively know the places to fly, and so they're releasing that pheromone, and the drones will compete to catch her, and they'll mate with her in the air, and then they die and fall to the ground after that mating, and that allows other drones to mate with her. And so with that one mating period, she has enough sperm to produce worker bees for the rest of her life. So what I was saying, why that's important to know, is because if you collect a hive that is Africanized, that all you need to do to change the genetics of that colony is to replace the queen, which means we purchase a queen that's already been mated in a place that has no Africanized bees, like Hawaii, and we'll order her. I'm going to be getting one in the mail any time now. You take that queen, you have to destroy the African queen, so you got to find her first, take her out of the hive. And for African bees, we have special little cages. It's like a square cage that we put the queen, we press it onto the frame where the comb is. So it's she's on the comb where she can start to lay eggs, but she's protected from the bees that want to kill her, because any colony will kill a queen that's not their own. But African bees really don't like non-African queens. So one way we get them to accept her is to allow her to start laying eggs before we let her out. And then we'll keep her in there for a week or so, and when we come back, we'll just look and see if they've accepted her. If their faces are in towards the screen trying to feed and take care of her, we know that they've accepted her. If their butts are sticking in trying to sting her, they haven't accepted her, and we'll leave her for another week. But usually they accept, and you can take that off, and she'll start laying eggs. They'll take care of all the brood, and slowly, the adult bees will die, and then the bees that the queen is laying will take over that colony. And so you'll have a European colony in a couple months.
Well, that's cool. In Jamaica, I assume they smoke them with herbals. Maybe not.
Jamaica. Actually, Puerto Rico is claimed they've had Africanized bees. It's claimed that their Africanized bees are becoming more docile. So I don't know about that. I haven't read about it recently. It was a few years ago. So I'll have to look into that.
That sounds like propaganda started by the bee consortium of Puerto Rico.
It's
B- b-
possible.
buy our
I think I should
queen.
go there and check it out, though. I'd be happy to go check it out for them.
Well, you should. You should. Buy our Puerto Rican queens. They're not so bad.
Uh, yeah, I'll stick to Hawaii. It
Okay.
still costs $30 to $40. Sometimes, if you're not with a group, it's going to cost you like $60 to get a queen.
Wow. That would be something
Yeah,
people could sponsor. How cool would that be?
we actually do for our group. We tried it having a queen sponsorship, which would be super awesome. We tried it for a while, and then it just kind of faded away. But we have these little queen cards that we were using, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I could start that up again. It really would help beekeepers.
Well, it would be a way that we
Really.
it would be a way that someone that's not going to keep a hive that wants the bees to survive could support a beekeeper. And how cool would
Yeah.
that be? I mean,
Oh my gosh.
sponsor a hive, sponsor a queen. There'd be so much we
Right?
could do
It
because
would be awesome. Yes.
you know, Cricket, you're involved in an industry of baby bunny rabbits because nobody can say there's anything wrong with trying to preserve the bees.
Yeah, nobody can say that. It
Well, they
is.
can say that, but if they do, they need to be taken out of the gene pool.
Yeah. And bees are so vital. They're so vital for our survival. They're um, they're so essential
You
to
know,
our plants, to our world, and they have been throughout history. I mean, think before we had electricity. What do you think where did they get their light from? Candles. We didn't have petroleum. I mean, they had tallow and oil lamps, but candles have been vital for seeing in the dark for thousands of years.
yeah.
That's just one little thing that bees did for us. Besides, allowing us to breed by pollinating the plants, and giving us food.
Well, that's I live in a agricultural center. One of the largest beekeepers in the country is out here.
Oh, I imagine.
Another friend of mine is a beekeeper, and he's out here. But they actually lease their hives to the
Hmm.
farmers to get the fields pollinated, and that's a big
Well,
part.
yeah.
That's a big part of their business.
Well, I talk to people. A lot of people say that the honeybees, maybe not a lot of people, some people say honeybees are out competing native bees, but I don't really find that. Um, Native bees don't make large colonies. Native bees aren't going to pollinate your crops. They live in solitary little holes in the ground or holes in your tree. They lay a few eggs. They reproduce themselves, and you'll see them. I mean, Arizona alone has, I think, 1,300 species of bees. Only of native bees. Honeybees are not native. But imagine without this concentrated number of 60,000 bees in one little hive. Plop that on a field, and those bees are pollinating. You can't do that with native bees. They pollinate the native flowers that are around, and only in such small numbers.
Now I remember back in a prior life living in Paradise Valley, Arizona, and the rock climbers would go out to the Fort McDowell area. And the first question you would ask them, did you run into the bees? This was long before the Africanized bees ever got to the United States.
Mm.
And they were called
How nice
they were called the Fort McDowell bees because they
Oh,
were small and aggressive and nasty. So these bees had a reputation.
how funny. I haven't even heard of that.
Well, you just need to find some old rock climbers that were silly enough to go out to Fort McDowell to do some climbing. But they were called the Fort McDowell bees, and they were much smaller.
Hmm.
So
I wonder what they were.
does that mean they were native bees or
I
most?
mean, pre-Africanized bees, I would think maybe so.
Yeah, these were when Saturday
And
Night
if they were
Live.
small,
Yeah, they were small.
yeah.
We had a wild swarm that would come in when our we call it the skunk tree would bloom, and they were
Hmm.
smaller and they were so active in that tree, and that you could just hear that tree sing from 10 feet away.
Yeah. Yeah, we have digger bees that love the Palo Verdes, and they only come out for a couple months during the year. And yeah, the trees will hum. I love that. They're
Yeah.
so cute, but those ones are not aggressive.
No, neither were these. There were so many of them, it would make you a little nervous, but
Yeah,
as soon as the tree was done, they were gone. Not even one
yeah,
straggler. So,
yeah. Their lives are not the same as a honeybee for sure.
the other
They're
thing,
very different.
Cricket, you can bring us up to speed on. I assume your bee festival is still going strong.
Yes, yes. It's moved. Then it's now at Paradise Valley Community College. We had it there the first time this year, and so it'll be back November 11th at Paradise Valley Community College. And we'll have some amazing speakers and crafts and vendors and everything about honeybees.
Are you going to have a spelling bee this year, Cricket?
You know what? That's a good idea, actually. I think we will have a spelling bee.
Well,
It's so cool.
Westmoreland did a honey festival, Westmoreland, California, which is a small little agricultural town supported by the Ashers honey and beekeepers, and that was the first thing they did was they did a spelling bee, and they had all the schools participate in that spelling bee, and they got the Superior Court judges to be the judges of the spelling bee.
What? Okay, I love that. And being at the college, we have a location we could do that at.
Well, it's just something for the kids, and,
Super fun.
and the other thing
Yeah.
they would do, and I don't know if you have access to them, but they would bring in a plexiglass display of cutter bees.
Of cutter bees?
Yeah, cutter bees are what they call them out here.
Or like
They
leaf
actually,
cutter bees?
yeah, they use them in the alfalfa fields.
Ah, interesting.
So,
So they're not honeybees or they are honeybees?
well, they're not an aggressive bee at all. I don't know, Cricket. I can find out for you.
Because
But
I mean, I know honeybees pollinate alfalfa. Maybe, yeah, I know honeybees pollinate alfalfa.
these are cutter
But,
bees, and if you're driving through Imperial Valley, California, and you go by a field and you see small trailers that have about 9 hives on them dispersed
hmm
throughout a field of alfalfa, that's what they are. And that's the only time the beekeepers down here will use those trailers with those bees.
hmm, interesting. Cutter bees.
And we call
They
we,
still might be honeybees, because I know that's how a lot of farmers do. They take their bees on those trailers and haul them around to farms like that.
yeah, okay.
That's cool.
All right, Cricket. What else
Yeah.
can we do to help you? We could sponsor the Honey Festival, November 11th, Veterans Day. We should all remember that.
Yeah, we also have our still trying to get our license plate, Save the Bees license plate sponsored. We still need $20,000 for that. But what that license plate will do is actually every time somebody purchases that license plate, puts it on their car, we get $17 for our organization, Arizona Backyard Beekeepers, and that will help us to support bees in Arizona through research and just care for bees and community outreach. So we need the money to get that even made. Once it's made, then we get all that money will go into our organization, and that would help a lot.
Well, that would be something a food manufacturer might be interested in jumping into because one
I
of
know,
that
I would think
that's a
that.
baby that's a baby bunny rabbit too. So let's sponsor some hives. Let's sponsor some queens. Let's do some sponsorship of the new and improved honey festival that's going to be at what college again?
Paradise Valley Community College.
Okay, and let's be a corporate underwriter of that license plate program.
Yes, let's do that. Yes, let's do that. It would be so awesome. Something we've been working for quite a while. And it's a really cute license plate. So, who wouldn't want a honeycomb license plate?
Well, yeah, exactly. So we're going to give everybody all the links to you, Cricket. I mean, if you're in metropolitan Phoenix and you need some bee removal, I would
Yeah,
highly recommend this lady to do that because she does it with passion and she does it with compassion, and she'll solve that problem for you. And you'll know that those bees are going to go on to a fruitful life. I don't know if we can say that with bees. They're gonna go out there and generate some fruit.
they're going to generate fruit. They're going to live their life the way they want to live it,
How cool is that?
just not in your house.
Yes. Or in your water meter or in your tree or in your
Or in
wherever
your
they get.
composter, or in your vacuum cleaner, or in your garbage can, or in your tires.
Or your brick
The
wall
bees.
or
Yeah, I could make a book of the crazy places I found bees.
I'm sure you
So
can.
funny.
Cricket, everybody out here, we all love what you're doing. You're a blessing. You're actually a blessing to the planet. And
Aw.
and if the people don't recognize that, they should talk to me and I'll explain it to them until they understand.
Yeah, I'm sending people to you.
All right, you do that. Hey, everybody, this has been Justin Case and Cricket Aldridge bringing you Bee Havens, and we're going to come back and do a few more of these. Thanks for joining us. Remember, additional information and links are provided in this video's read more. Today's the day to subscribe to this channel. Please support bees, bee wranglers, and beekeepers everywhere.